Okay, this is my YouTube video on the OSI model labeled Open Systems Interconnection Model. It's a very popular model. It has 7 layers in it. Those 7 layers are application, presentation, session, transport, network, data link, and physical. All 7 of these layers are important layers to send information over a network. Okay, and we'll be going over all these 7 layers, so stick through the movie, and you'll understand how all this works. Let's begin. The OSI, or Open Systems Interconnection Model, was made by an organization called the ISO. ISO, or International Organization for Standardization, made a reference model to try to standardize the design of communication systems. The OSI model contains 7 layers. From the bottom to top, the first one is physical, data link, network, transport, session, presentation, and finally application. Each layer depends on each other to do what it should. When the ISO developed the OSI model, they didn't specify what protocols are in each layer. Instead, they leave this up to the network designer. The OSI model works by telling what type of a wire or connection is needed at a particular layer. Also, each layer in the OSI model provides a service for the next layer. So for example, the transport layer makes sure the data is received by the end computer. However, the network layer determines the best route for that information to be sent to the destination. So let's begin with application, and we'll work our way down to the physical layer in this OSI model. Okay, so the application layer, it is the top layer of the OSI model. It's kind of ironic that it's called the application layer because it's not a program like Word or Outlook, but it's a service that's run on a computer. So let's take Outlook for example. When you send an email, the application layer makes your email into a data package, and it then sends it on to the presentation layer, which is right below the application layer. Um, Common protocols that you find in the application layer are FTP, File Transfer Protocol, Telnet, Remote Login, and of course everyone that uses web browsers so they know the HTTP protocol. So when you send an email, your email goes into your data package, and your data package is now sent on to the presentation layer. Okay, so the next layer is the presentation layer, second layer in the OSI model. This performs a series of functions for presenting the data package properly to the sender or receiver. And it does this by, let's say, making characters ASCII or non-ASCII. It can encrypt, decrypt data, secure documents, and compress the data into smaller sections. And then after the presentation layer is done, it sends the information to the session layer. Okay, so the data is next sent to the session layer. And the session layer is responsible for, of course, establishing sessions between users and for token management. And token management is a service that controls which computers talk and when. This is responsible, the session layer is responsible for beginning, ending, and maintaining a session. And a neat thing about the session layer, is that it can create synchronization points or backup points in case of errors or failures, so you don't have to resend the whole document or information over again. The session layer, even though it sounds really nice, it's the least used of all, and some people don't even use it at all. Okay, so the transport layer. This is where things start to get a little more interesting as the information is turned into a segment. Transport layer, anything that comes out of the transport layer comes out as a segment. In the transport layer, it is responsible for end-to-end error control as well as end-to-end flow control. And the error recovery that it can do is done through this segmentation process. And how that works is it sends a segment out, and if it doesn't hear an acknowledgement back from the receiver, it's resent. Common transport layer protocols are TCP and UDP, and they're both found here. Okay, so the network layer is responsible for a lot of things. This one's very, very important. First, it's responsible for creating, maintaining, and ending network connections. This layer determines the path packets are going to take from the sender to the receiver and how it's going to get there over the intermediary devices. Also, in this layer, segments from the transport layer are encapsulated into packets. Also, in this networking layer, you'll find the IP protocol, Internet protocol, and you will find routers. Routers are in the network layer. So now let's move on to data link layer. Okay, so the second to the last, the data link layer, it takes information from the network layer and encapsulates it into a frame. So a packet then turns into a frame. In this frame, it has all the information from the upper layer. So all the information from the transport layer, the TCP, down to the network layer, the IP information, and now in the frame, it has the destination and source MAC addresses. Okay, and also the data link layer is responsible for flow control and to make sure a node doesn't become overloaded or overwhelmed. And next, it provides error detection. Now, the transport layer provides error detection and error correction. However, the data link layer can only detect it, and it'll either drop a packet or send a message back. Another difference between the data link layer's error detection is that it's done at each node or each stop. The transport layer only detects at the endpoints, the sender and receiver. Okay, so the physical layer of the OSI model is the last layer, the bottom layer, and this contains a lot of the hardware parts of the networking. This includes networking cables, Ethernet, coaxial, the cables and pins, the voltage levels. Basically anything that has to do with the ones and zeros being transmitted, because this layer handles those transmission bits. And it does this by the plugs, the voltage levels, pin configurations, and stuff like that to transmit the zeros and ones. And also, at the physical layer, it determines how to send the data, whether to send the data wirelessly or over a wired LAN network. It also determines whether to encode, modulate digital or analog data over the network. Okay, so this was the OSI model. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Just to recap, the 7 layers of the OSI model are application, presentation, session, transport, network, data link, and physical layers. And all 7 of those are used to transport information across a network. Thanks for listening.